Well, aren't you guys being... Oh my god. Bunch of friendlies. Go away. Go away. No, 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 no. This is bad. This is bad. This is a bad time. Nope. 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 So welcome back to Q&A with the side of Minecraft. I'm being interrupted rudely in my attempts to be having a continuous heartbeat. Go away. Go away. They actually climbed up on top of my house where I was standing. That was a bad experience. So this is going to be probably my first genuine sort of lightning round. Not quite a proper lightning round where I'm not going to be like, bam, 10-second answers to questions, but I think I'm going to have a bunch of questions this episode. I'm actually currently waiting for some people for a multiplayer session for something, and I don't know how long that's going to be, so I'm just going to hang out and answer questions for a while. And so the first one is, and apologies in advance if I somehow forget to include the question on the screen in this one, like I'm trying to do, because there might be a lot, and I might just lose track of them. So, first one is from a name that's hard. What is that name? Ireneo Cardenas, I think. Listen, I have a limited exposure to different types of names. What's your most favorite / most memorable playthrough of a game you've done so far? Are there any that you'd recommend to someone just subscribing to your channel, either to get a sense of your style or for whatever reason? That's a tough one. In many ways, I think my most memorable playthroughs probably have to be... It's hard not to just say every single Souls game, basically. Off the top of my head, we'd probably talk about Bloodborne, I think. The Talos Principle, Legend of Grimrock 2, obviously The Witness. Trying to think if there's other good ones, really. Those are a good example of my styles. In fact, very different playthroughs in general. Obviously, there's the huge ones like Dragon Age Inquisition and Witcher 3, which are inherently memorable because I spent an eternity playing them. I need to find some nice sheep to murder so I can actually sleep and make this my home. The long ones, of course, are memorable just because they're long, but those are some of my favorites, and the Bloodborne really, in particular, helps highlight... There's a witch again? The general editing style that I tend to have, where I cut past backtracking, and I reduce significantly how long the duration of the recording is for, like, boss fights that I struggled against, because I might fight a boss literally 40 times, but then the video that comes out is still, well, not the hours of agony that I actually experienced as a person. Spider, why? But I think those are some of the... Hey, Piggy. You surprised me a little bit when you came up here. You want to come inside, Piggy? Piggy, Piggy? It's safe in here, maybe. I've got leather. That's like... maybe your family. I really wish I could, I need to start setting up a farm so I can heal myself. I think that's the go-to, though, really. I would definitely say the most memorable experiences would probably be Bloodborne and The Witness for me in particular. But those are all playthroughs that I'd recommend watching if you want to see the greatest hits or something like that. How to put it. Next up, Enter Folly. If you, Wanderbot, and Andrew had a battle royale to the death, who would win? Who would be the first to go? Narrate the battle for us. Jesus Christ. I don't think I can narrate the battle, because I don't think I can sit here and invent an entire scenario in my head in real time and act it out or anything like that. But, it's actually a little hard to say. I've not been around Wander a ton in real life to judge stuff like that. Andrew would probably go first, because he is a frail skeleton man, and he's frankly the most likely just to die first out of all of us, just regardless of Battle Royale, just because he has all sorts of health problems and everything like that. Oh, that's a zombie. So with his health problems and so on, he's probably just going to die regardless. I am probably about to be attacked if I go that way. Let's just keep going forward. I don't know about Wander. I know that I don't know, I might be the only one that's had martial arts training at any point, because I did do that for a while, so maybe I'd have an advantage. It's hard to say, but I'm probably going to die here. Oh, damn you skeletons. The most dangerous thing in the game. I'm just trying to find a little food. And it's not happening. Yep, I'm going to get murdered. That's where this is going. Hey, eggs! That's a good start. But I'm never going to get out of here without getting murdered by that guy. Unless I get really lucky. We'll see how it goes. I need a bed so I can try to skip to daylight ever. Hey, guy. But that's more or less all I gotta go with that one. Sorry, I don't really have a narration for you. It's not in my skill set to just come up with stories on the fly so much. Next person, this is a bad time to read questions. Green Viper 28 says, do you ever think you'll start doing face cams in all your videos? I addressed this a little bit before, and to be fair, this question existed before then. So it's not that they're not asking the question stupidly afterwards, but just as a recap. Oops. Because of the general way that I play video games, or the general style of game I play, and the general way that I do commentary, ooh, sugarcane. Ultimately, face cams would be super redundant and a waste of space, and would ultimately reduce the quality of my content, in my opinion. I actually have found, like when I was doing Dragon Age Inquisition, I would look up other people's videos, and I would see other people playing the same game, and in particular, what stood out to me is there was these videos of this one woman who has a green screen where she, and to be fair, she might be a streamer, and maybe they're just exporting the streams to YouTube, in which case that makes a little more sense, but she had a green screen behind her so that her she would just be levitating on the screen, because she could get rid of the rest of the room and it would just be her being perfectly inserted into the video. And she was just sitting there playing Dragon Age, and she would just kind of, you know, make a minor remark every now and then, but often would just be silent for a minute at a time. And it wasn't even because she was being quiet for a conversation. It was just she was being all quiet and having a face cam. And I'm looking at the stuff and I'm just like, what is the face cam doing? It's not like you're not Markiplier. You're not making a bunch of ridiculous faces all the time or anything. So it's like, do we really need to have a continuous stream of somebody's face for the entire video? Because maybe several hours in, they might have an expressional change on their face. Because I hate to break it to people, but most of the time, unless you specifically want people to pretend and act and be false about it, people generally have pretty blank faces when they're playing video games, even when they're doing commentary. Like, my voice, even right in these videos, even when I'm doing this now, like, my voice is probably more expressive than my face will ever be, because I think part of that might be because I think to some extent facial expressions are a social thing. I think that you're more likely to make faces when you're actually talking to a human being that's in front of you, when you're then talking at nobody or the air. And maybe some people might empathize. People might be able to get that weird little element of empathy into their brain to make them react that way around a camera. And that, I suppose that's what acting is. But most people, when faced with not the normal situation, tend to just not have proper reactions. Why is all this on the ground? Is this where I died? This doesn't seem like the right... That doesn't seem like the right spot. Thought I died over here. But yeah, the face cam's a waste of space. It's a distracting thing that covers up a bunch of the screen. Oh, I guess I did go around that way because of the way the river goes. It covers up a bunch of the screen, not much gets done. It's just a guy sitting there with his face, not doing anything while he talks. And it covers up usually like important elements of the UI or other things. And some people prefer it. I mean, if there's anything I've learned from watching streams at all, and which I don't like doing at all, but I'll watch them for the sake of observing the audience themselves and what people like. And I do acknowledge that there's some subsection of people that really are into just staring at somebody's face for some reason as they blankly play video games, because there's a lot of people that play, like, I'll see streams of people playing Mario Maker and stuff, and they don't ever really talk, and they just have a face cam, and they have brand deal headphones and brand. I have more items down there. That is where I died. I just got totally mixed up of where I was, I guess. Maybe I had a misconception of where the starting spawn was relative to where I died. They'll have like their brand deal headphones and their sponsored chair they're sitting in. That's the gamer chair they're selling that they get paid for having. And they're just sitting there playing video games, and I'm just like, I don't get it. There's no presentation here. There's no like, this doesn't feel like it's for an audience. It goes against everything that I ever give advice to people for, like how to do content and stuff like that, or how to try to improve your commentary. It's like, there's just no commentary. It's just a guy with a face cam and a donation button and a thing that says top tip of the day. And like, it makes me feel old. Like I don't understand what the internet is, basically. Similarly to like when you see Five Nights at Freddy's becoming the most popular thing in the world, I'm just like, I must be irrelevant and have no idea what's going on because I don't understand why people are watching this. Or specifically why people are watching this over every other channel that does the exact same thing but doesn't have that kind of success. I don't know. Video games and everything around them are weird. But yeah, no face cam. Not unless I play a really specific type of horror game where I think it'll help, but even then, I think that Soma was a fantastic game with cool atmosphere and everything. Oops, wrong way. I think it had cool atmosphere and a great story, and I think that no part of those videos would have been all that much improved by having my face cam pop up in the corner. And also, frankly, doing a proper face cam, actually kind of hard. I'll definitely give them that much credit. When you try to do a face cam, you need to have really proper lighting, and you need to have a really high quality camera that looks right when it's at the right distance from your face, that it doesn't mess with the proportions of your face in really unflattering ways, and doesn't fuck up the color balance of everything. And it's actually like kind of a nightmare to figure out to some extent. There's a reason why making films is generally expensive, because you actually have good professionals to do things like that, and not in many cases, just some teenager who got something at Best Buy. And that's why a lot of people's face cam look really bad. Here we go. And frankly, like I actually have trouble even just putting my camera in a position that gets my face, especially since I have a microphone type that just goes right up in that mouth with a pop filter and everything. So that, like, there's videos out there of me doing streams where you just basically see my eyes and nose, because everything below that is totally being engulfed by the device I used to talk to you guys in the first place to get that audio quality that so many of you seem to be happy with. So there's even additional technical issues to be concerned with on top of the part where I just don't really want to do it in the first place. Next question, in Reserve Productions, who is your favorite Doctor and why? This is actually a hard question to answer. So this is a question about Doctor Who, for those that don't know, unless I want to be a really big smartass and try to make the joke about something else, but I'm sure they're talking about Doctor Who. So I've been watching Doctor Who for the entire duration of its reboot. I've never watched the original Doctor Who from back in the day, which originally started out as a black and white show. I think Doctor Who actually dates all the way back to around the same time as the beginning of Star Trek. It might even be older than Star Trek, because I think Star Trek at least started out in color, I think. And I think Doctor Who might have actually fully started out in black and white, which is a crazy concept for a sci-fi show, that it would be that old, although I think the sci-fi elements may have been a bit weaker back then. I genuinely do not know. Just going to leave this here for now. No, I should make a ladder so I can climb on top of this thing. That'll be the best solution. Put it right here. Block away. There we go. So Doctor Who is quite possibly my favorite show. It's really hard. Favorites are weird, first of all, because favorite's not always the same thing as saying that you think it's the best thing. Like, I think that the best show on television is probably either Game of Thrones or Better Call Saul. I enjoy Walking Dead quite a bit for other reasons, with how it deals with the elements of its storytelling, but no, like when I talk about great television, I think of those shows. Doctor Who, though, is an adventure. In that, what I love about the show is the fact that, by the way, I'm really bummed out that my building's multiple colors, but I don't feel like I might replace one of the colors over time when I get more wood of that type. The show's a total adventure all the time, and that's what I love about it, which is the fact that I don't know what the hell's going to happen in that show at any given time, and it has that childlike wonder element to it. There's it says a lot about the show that they do Christmas specials every year. Like that's just the type of show it is. They do Christmas specials on a television sci-fi show, and they do them every year, which just sounds insane to me. But it's because that's just the type of show it is. And it's not just because it's a children's show, but because that's the type of approach it has. A lot of the monsters are actually things that exist purely because they are the type of things you would tell children to terrify them. Like, it's that kind of thing where you just mess with people, and it's all good fun. and it deals with some of the craziest goddamn concepts. And I realize I'm not answering the question, but I just want to talk about Doctor Who a little bit, because I don't think I really have on the channel. It deals with just absolutely insane concepts, and sometimes it's satisfied just to be doing the concept in the first place, and that doesn't necessarily need to take the time to think of the best possible way to do the concept, or dedicate an entire series to the concept, because like the thing about sci-fi television, and even movies and stuff, is that oftentimes the entire thing exists purely to explore one concept. And the crazy shows are the ones that explore a lot of concepts. Like how Star Trek has replicators and no money and a crazy government, like a massive interspecies galactic government, and it has teleporters and questions about whether or not the teleporters might just be killing people every time they hop in them and all those kinds of things, while also dealing with the concept of like everything having a scientific explanation, but then confronting you with the idea of godlike creatures and moving on like that. And like Doctor Who is that kind of sci-fi show, in that it's willing to deal with insane concepts on a regular basis, where a lot of sci-fi shows have one idea and the whole show is going to be about that idea forever, and that's kind of a bummer. So the constant inventiveness makes up for a lot of things, because frankly, Doctor Who often has really bad writing at times, plot holes, weird issues with the characters, a lot of things to complain about, annoying elements. If you don't like it when Wesley saves the ship, Lord knows Doctor Who can have some Deus Ex Machina all up in there. And it's cheesy as all hell, and the effects and monsters and everything range from really cool and really impressive and really surprisingly effective and scary or lifelike to being hilariously cheesy and weird looking. For every weeping angel, there's the Roxicoricophallopeptorians, which is what? And crazy stuff like that. But then that Doctor Who will surprise you by throwing a thing at you that seems so dorky and stupid, and then also giving it a surprising amount of heart. And like it'll introduce one creature at first that is some kind of dumb fart alien, and then also start questioning you about oh, that's a slab, not a pressure plate. I forgot how to make pressure plates, didn't I? No, I didn't. Okay, good. It'll throw stuff at you like how it'll have a crazy fart alien. Like, no, it's not even a joke. That's just a real thing. And it'll be dumb. It'll just seem so dumb. But then, it'll turn around and have you questioning, like, what kind of crimes are worthy of certain types of punishments, and whether or not, like, you can go too far, and I should probably just turn these on sticks. Whether or not there's a point. That was a mistake, actually. I wanted to make more roofing. It'll make you question, how do I put this? Like, when at some point a crime is so bad that maybe execution is worthwhile, or whether people can change, and whether all these like actually surprisingly like real life and death situation type questions come up in a show that has ridiculous creatures and stuff in it. In many ways, it's kind of some of the levels of absurdity and humor and so on that you get from a show like Rick and Morty, but Rick and Morty goes obviously much darker, and it's and much more honest at moments, and very abruptly, partly because it's a shorter show and partly because it's for a more adult audience. But Doctor Who is just, I don't know, I guess I'm bad at articulating what I'm trying to even go for here. But it's, suffice to say, possibly my favorite show, just due to the way that it constantly is willing to just try things and throw other things at them. Like, one of the craziest concepts is that there's an entire character who there's a character who meets the Doctor on the day that they die. Well, basically. We'll just accept that as being the answer for now, basically. And that character becomes a reoccurring character for seasons of the show, for so long that they'll outlast that Doctor, and then the next Doctor, and continue to have a character all the way up to the Doctor 2 Doctors later. Because for those that don't know, the main character of Doctor Who regenerates into a completely different actor with a different personality every few seasons, essentially dying while not dying at the same time. You get the hell away from my house is what you're gonna do. Buddy? Like, that's an insane concept, that you meet a character on the day they die, but then because of the fact that the main character is a time traveler, you keep meeting that character over and over again, backwards through their lifespan, basically, all the way to the point where you get to see... Every time that you've seen them... Every time you see them on the show, you're going back in time for them, but forward in time for the main characters of the show. And, like, so you have two people having an inverted relationship, almost in like a Benjamin Button type situation, except in Benjamin Button, he was still forming new memories and moving forward in time. He just was aging backwards. But in this situation, the person was literally living their life in the reverse order that the Doctor was, which is insane. But anyway, on the topic of my favorite Doctor, there have been 4 so far. I'm not going to count John Hurt because he's only around for one quick special. At this point, I think I'm just going to camp out in my house because everything's dangerous outside. I don't have a bed, which is a bummer. But we'll ignore John Hurt because he's only around for the anniversary special as a fun nod. But we have Christopher Eccleston, we have David Tennant, we have Matt Smith, and we have, this is embarrassing, Peter Capaldi. There we go. I had the word Campbell stuck in my head and I couldn't think past it for some reason. We have Peter Capaldi, and the tough thing is I like all of them a lot. Like, a lot. In fact, I like all the companions, too. The only companion I'm not a fan of is Martha. Martha has a very specific... Oh, let's just not trigger that guy or blow up my house. Martha has a specific problem in that she seems like she just likes being abused or something. She bothers me because in every... And like everything else, it's not always the actor's fault or even the premise of the character's fault, but it's just how the show is written that can be problematic. And in the case of Martha, there was a weird gap, which is that normally a companion, at the beginning and end of each episode, there's usually some kind of vague inference because of how dangerous the average episode is for the companions, that no one would ever want to do that ultimately, that they were constantly having their life threatened or tortured, or they're basically being enslaved and so on, that they make sure to hint at the idea like, oh, but between these episodes they had crazy adventures that were just fun, and they went to New York, and there was something about apple grass, or they just, oh, something went outside my house. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, it's the problem with the pressure plate. I need to add a button instead of a pressure plate. I don't know why I did that. Normally in Doctor Who, and I guess this is the end of the lightning round, huh, because I've been on this one for a while. Normally on Doctor Who, they do try to infer the idea that, like, they had a good time between episodes doing cool adventures, and that's why it's worth it, because you get to have all these cool... There's 4 monsters in my house. You get to have a bunch of crazy, unique adventures throughout the universe, and then in between that, sometimes a crisis happens, and that's usually what the episode is. It's much like the Star Trek thing, where they have a daily life on the Enterprise. I think of Next Generation when I think of Star Trek. Oops. Oh, that's really bad. They have their daily life on the Enterprise, and it's all good, and it's all almost kind of utopian in many ways, and they have healthcare, and they have free food, and people get to pursue their interests, but then bad stuff happens every now and then in the Enterprise, and maybe people die, or there's a threat and stuff. That's how Doctor Who is supposed to be, too. I mean, being able to go anywhere at any time is supposed to be really exciting and beneficial to the people involved, but... They made a mistake with Martha, in my opinion, which is that they would flow the individual storylines directly into each other. You can see one episode flowing directly into the next episode, because where there's no inference of space or time in between. In fact, in many cases, if I remember correctly, it's impossible, because they would literally go day to day immediately. Like you'd actually see them move from one location to the other in the episode, and it was a problem because then you just have this horrible life happening to this person, where they should not be okay with this. They should not be interested in sticking around, but for some reason they are, and it seemed like a really big problem. So I ended up not liking that character because aside from being weirdly open to being abused, she also just didn't seem to have much of a personality compared to them. Her primary thing was that she was capable. I'm like, this is not interesting to me. It's like just being capable isn't enough of a personality trait to me. Oh, that's a creeper in my house. We're having a good day, huh? But other companions, other doctors are all great. And I have a bad tendency in most forms of fiction or video games or really anything where I have a tendency to prioritize whatever comes first. So given these 4 people, Doctors 9, 10, 11, and 12, I am inherently biased in favor of Christopher Eccleston, Doctor Number 9, because he was the first one of this series and the first one that I experienced and so on, and he gets the additional benefit of being someone that was cut short in that he only was around for 1 season. So all I see about I'm about to get shot off a cliff is what's about to happen. All I see in him is a bunch of wasted potential and like a character that could have been used for a bunch of stuff and already was used for a bunch of cool stuff in a really cool way that I can only wish I could see more of. So by default, I have a tendency to think, oh, he's the best one and out of all the 4, and I don't know if that's entirely true or even true to my own opinion, but I just feel that way all the time. But Eccleston's absolutely fantastic because he is Dr. 9 is very serious and very like weighed down by all the stuff that's happened to him because he's the doctor that's fresh out of the Time War, and so he's seen bad things happen, and he's seen everyone that he's known well, not everyone he's known, but all of his people, like his actual people, get wiped out, and some of it is his own fault, and that's all crazy to me. And he conveys that pain super well, and it's specifically the episode Dalek is actually the specific one that really sells you on this idea, because you see him encounter he's supposed to be the last Time Lord, and he encounters what's supposed to be the last Dalek, and the absolute anger and deep pain conveyed there with very little context, considering that the show's brand new at that point, in that it's trying to introduce it to people that don't know who these characters are, is really effective, and it really messes with you, and you buy into it, and that really sold me on the entire character. There's also a fantastic there's a fantastic line that's very hard to explain, but early on, Rose, the first companion of the reboot, the sun's going up, so now everyone's burning finally. Rose, the first companion of the reboot, asks the Doctor who he is, and instead of giving a straightforward answer, he says, and I'll be paraphrasing because I can't remember the really well phrased line, but he basically says, you know how the world is constantly hurtling through space at 100,000 miles per hour and spinning, and it's all happening all the time, but you never feel it? Well, he does, is basically the concept. It's like, he always feels the Earth's rotation. He knows exactly what's happening around him. I'm about to die. Well, at least I died inside my house with where all my stuff is, so I can easily grab it all, but I need armor. I need to start mining underground properly with a bunch of torches so I can get armor. That's my mistake I'm making right now. But his way of conveying what he is, which in reality he's an alien who's been around for an incredibly long time, is incredibly clever and aware of his surroundings, and has more understanding of the universe than a lot of people ever could, which is a fun device for them to just be able to be like, oh yeah, he just magically knows about this thing we've never seen before on a regular basis on the show. But basically he's someone that has so much awareness of things that yeah, he can be on a planet and feel the fact that it's moving in a way that people on that planet wouldn't, because you're conditioned to never even realize the fact that the planet's moving all the time. And in fact, he might even not really feel it, because it might be impossible to feel a planet moving when you're on it. But the idea there is that he is so aware of it, because planets are so impermanent to him, that he actually does have a proper recognition of what it's like to be on a rock hurtling through space. That guy not in here? Cool. I need to make a proper mining situation so I can get a proper armor. In fact, I'll probably do what I often do, which is just make a cave on the side of my house to get in and out. Let's see. I really did throw away everything, didn't I? Because I should be making a button, which I don't even necessarily remember how to make. We would need wood for it at the very least, though. But that's what he is. He is the guy. He is the doctor. He travels so much and visits so many planets and so many times that all he can do is view them from the outside. He views time the way that Dr. Manhattan views time, as this non-linear thing that exists fully formed in all of its permutations all at once, as opposed to a thing that we experience linearly. And he experiences space in a similar fashion, where an individual planet isn't necessarily important. Or, not that it's not important. In fact, the more he adventures, the more he convinces himself that everything is important, every life is sacred, and everything's a big deal, and that's why you don't see him using guns, and why he doesn't kill when he can avoid it. In fact, when people die on that show, even villains, it's usually an indirect thing, and it's kind of a contrivance of the writers in the same way that people just carefully avoid situations that would actually test the moral code of Superman or Batman, because they're supposed to not kill people or whatever, that kind of stuff. But the fact that he travels planets so much means that he's constantly thinking about the fact that he is on a planet, because it's always a matter of which planet he's visiting now, as opposed to just our perspective, where a planet just exists and we're on it, and that's just reality, and that we don't even think about it the same way we don't think about breathing. Like, it's that kind of concept. Like, what if you were constantly in other states that were other than breathing, and breathing was a specific state you could choose to enter into and leave? That's how he views planets, and that kind of line sells it for me. The problem is, like, how do you define your favorite Doctor, by and large, because they are just actors. And, like, it's like, oh, do you really just do one? Oh, wow. Forgot how that worked. There we go. This will help with my problem where all the monsters are walking into my house. Bloop. So now I can open the door with that, which is handy. It's pointless because the door will open itself automatically. I mean, it's just a door, so you don't really need that. But it'll be handy when I actually get a proper iron door. But yes, how do I'm just trying to even conceptualize what I'm trying to go for here. Like, I'm so aware of how big of a production something like Doctor Who is, that there's so many writers, and every freaking episode has a different director, because that's how television works, for those of you that don't realize, which is in itself kind of a crazy concept to think about, that, like, the show changes hands on an episode-by-episode basis, but has long-standing arcs. And that's true for, like, Doctor Who is kind of episodic, but that's actually still true for a show that has one single linear plot and doesn't have, like, a Monster of the Week structure on a regular basis. Like, something like Walking Dead or Better Call Saul or something like that. Maybe not Better Call Saul, that might actually be an exception. But a lot of shows like that actually do have a different director every single episode, which is that's hard to comprehend how that even works for one storyline. Individual episodes change writers and directors, and that can have a massive impact on important parts of the story. So, like, a lot of what comes down to Doctor Who for fans is actually a matter of which particular showrunner you like the most, Stephen Moffat or Russell T Davies. You trying to break my door, or is it something else? No. So the Russell T Davies is the guy who ran the original reboot when it first started, and then Stephen Moffat's the guy that took over afterwards. If you don't know who Stephen Moffat is outside of this, a lot of you may know who he is because he also makes the show Sherlock. He runs both Sherlock and Doctor Who at the same time, which basically makes him the king of British shows that Americans know about. So he's made, pretty much the shows you would think of if you're an American knowing about British anything, which is a bit of a lot of power in one person. In that aspect, he's kind of like the J.J. Abrams of that kind of field, because J.J. Abrams is the Star Wars and Star Trek guy. Not at the same time, because he quit Star Trek, and in fact, I think he quit Star Wars now too, but he's still the guy that did both back to back, which is an insane concept. But there's a big division between how Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies handled things, and a lot of people have mixed opinions there, and I have my own mixed opinions as well. In many ways, I think that Russell T Davies, the guy that did the first 4 seasons, was better at having long-running storylines and building up to something big happening and so on. And I think that Stephen Moffat, the new guy, who is leaving soon, has a tendency to do these overblown attempts at building up for something that is ultimately totally superfluous in a way that's kind of a bummer in many cases. He will create a great mystery or suggest that the doctor's going to die at the end of the season or something. And like, oh my god, what's this mean? And then when it finally happens, it's always super underwhelming. And it feels like you're watching the show Lost again, which, funny to be thinking about J.J. Abrams that quickly into the conversation, but that's kind of how it goes, and that's kind of a bummer. But because I want to just have everything to matter all the time, and I want to have cool experiences, and so when something gets super anticlimactic in that kind of way, it's kind of a bummer in general. And it's not always easy to cite exact things, because we're firmly outside of a season right now, so it's hard to get towards it, but probably one of the biggest disappointments in the entire show was everything involving the impossible astronaut, because there is a season that literally opens with watching the doctor get shot to death, and not even he doesn't regenerate, he's just dead. And then of course that was seasons ago, so obviously that's been resolved in one way or another, but in the time since then, the actual resolution of that was really disappointing and not very interesting, and it often feels like they set up a cool, crazy plot line of oh my god, what's that going to be? And then when it's time to actually resolve the plot, they're just kind of just make something up. And it totally has a Deus Ex Machina feel, or I don't know, or how many times do they expect us to accept the idea that say the doctor sure has a lot of connections and sure is a lot of help to a lot of people and sure is a beacon of hope in all of the universe, so let's have him have all of his space buddies band together to magically solve his problems. And at some point, Stephen Moffat, while having really cool characters and really cool monsters and really cool storylines at times, has a tendency to put us into situations where the doctor basically just wins because he's the doctor. So it feels kind of like the how it should have ended joke, where he'll have a question, they'll have their cartoon Batman ask a question about why this happens or why he wins or why something happens, and his answer is always, because I'm Batman. And that's what Doctor Who feels like sometimes under the control of Stephen Moffat, is that Doctor Who is powerful, Doctor Who is important, Doctor Who is clever, and Doctor Who has a lot of friends and has helped a lot of people, so there's just sort of a magical solution that'll pop out of nowhere sooner or later if something is too big of a problem, and that's a bummer to me. And I don't think Russell T Davies was entirely innocent, but I think that he had less problematic plot lines. What I will say, though, is that something that does bias me in favor of the new Doctors, the newest ones, Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi, is the fact that, here we go, just sort of minding my way down, is the fact that, the show got hilariously better filmed at some point. The first 4 seasons of Doctor Who's reboot look kind of cheap and sad in a way that I think all of British television kind of used to. Because people always recommend that to watch Spaced if you like Edgar Wright, and I do like Edgar Wright, so I was like, let's try out Spaced. And then when I try Spaced, I'm like, oh man, it looks like this. That's a bummer. And it's actually kind of hard to get past how cheaply it looks. There was a period of time where on British television everything just looked super flat all the time and really cheap, and whenever something would move, it would kind of have a little bit of a blurry trail to it, almost like when an American television show makes a joke about peyote or something like that, and oh, they're on peyote, look at the trails they're seeing, or when they try to simulate drug use, there's a weird dreamy quality to British television that looks like a soap opera or something that makes me disappointed whenever I see it. And that's the first season. That's what the first 4 seasons of Doctor Who mostly look like, which is generally disappointing to me. See, this is all gravel, so it's more vulnerable to a shovel than anything else, which I should deal with because that's not gravel. That's gravel. Let's see. Don't want to put my torches and ladders on something that's gonna fall afterwards. Here we go. So I'm biased in favor of the newest seasons of Doctor Who because the budget seems to have increased, the special effects look better, and most importantly, it looks like it's better, just flat out filmed at a much higher quality, which makes it a more pleasant experience in general. because it had visual problems early on. But the storylines, it often comes down to the storylines and where my favorite episodes are and stuff like that. And my favorite episodes are all over the place, but I find that if I were to try to summarize all of Doctor Who and try to figure out the exact episodes that were my favorites, which I won't try to do right now because that's too much of a, let's try to make a really extensive list, basically, and that's more brain power than I have right now, I think. Ultimately, I would say that, I mean, I think I'd have to say that David Tennant, even though it's kind of the go-to one that everyone, I think a lot of people say, is probably the best Doctor overall. And it might be a little unfair because he flat out had more time than Christopher Eccleston did. But he gets a lot of the best episodes of the entire show. He gets fantastic character development. Martha's a bit iffy, but between Donna and Rose, he gets fantastic scenes and character developments that are really great experiences. And he has my all-time favorite episodes of the entire show. A few of them. Well, my favorite episode of the entire show is Midnight, which is a planet. I have a bias, by the way, in favor of storylines that take place in confined environments, so that's probably why. But it's a entire episode dedicated to them going on a trip, and it's actually a good episode if you want to watch it. If you never watched Doctor Who and you want to see just an episode about how weird the show can be with no context to it, Midnight's actually a decent place to start because the companion is basically not in the episode, so there's no continuous storyline involved. It's just a standalone thing. But they're stuck on a ship, on a little tour bus, basically, on a planet where if you go outside, you might die. But the idea is that they're trying to visit a really remote tourist destination, but it breaks down, and some kind of alien creature that might be able to infiltrate your mind is outside the ship. And it's a really, really cool experience, and it's one of my favorite things to go through. Here we go. And I find that David Tennant perfectly balances all the different versions of how to handle these characters, and the way that he can balance a character, it was shown again in Jessica Jones, because his portrayal of the villain in that was basically perfect. So I think my bias in favor of that actor fixes the whole show for me, because David Tennant can be really funny, and he can be really silly, but he can be very serious, and he can go the full length with the source material that's necessary to make that show work. So I think that he was a single actor and a single written character, because we can't give the actor all the credit, that balanced everything that people like about Doctor Who in one place. And some people might say the same thing about virtually every other Doctor, so I mean, it could be all the way down to just being a randomized personal bias, but if I were to pick one, it would ultimately be him. But they're all great. Because the first Doctor was a war veteran that was dealing with a great deal of loss. David Tennant was dealing with the fact that he keeps that no matter what he does, someone always seems to manage to die. The third Doctor, the 11th Doctor, I mean, had to deal with the fact that Matt Smith, that he was just getting older and older. He was specifically the Doctor that lived for hundreds of years in that one form. And so the whole premise of him was that he was an old man stuck in a young body, because he was also played by the youngest actor to ever play a Doctor on Doctor Who. And it was a cool effect because he just looked... there was a weird, strained tiredness to him. Like, where sometimes he looked genuinely excited about something, but at other times it was like he was putting on an act. Oh my god. That messes with his entire plan of where I'm going with this. That's frustrating. Bloop, bloop. Like, he looked strained and tired, like he's been through so much, which is accurate, because at that point, he is literally the 11th version of himself, and that individual version lived for hundreds of years, and that's really interesting in its own way. And then the most recent version, it just basically is actually an old man, just to go full length on that, and it's kind of funny that some of the older ones are often the sillier ones in some ways, or vice versa. And I think I'm exhausting this topic. I think I've long since exhausted this topic, and then at some point you're just listening to someone ramble on forever. You've already I mean, I'm sure we've beaten that point already. I went all the way down here, by the way, and did not randomly encounter a single piece of iron on the way down. That's my goal, is to try to make armor so I can start fighting things properly. Oh well. But, yeah. I think I'm just going to cut myself off before I go on forever, but the short answer is probably David Tennant, but ultimately I think every season of Doctor Who is good and bad for its own different reasons, and the show's entire success, from my perspective, is the fact that it's constantly experimenting and willing to try different things, and because it's constantly experimenting so consistently, it's almost guaranteed to fail on a regular basis, which is why a lot of the criticisms that come towards it happen. That's more or less... And so I just want that to keep happening, basically. It's a show that I will continue to watch, probably as long as I can, and I just want to see where it goes next every time, and I'm going to hate episodes, and I'm going to think that they drop the ball sometimes, and I think I'm going to love it other times, and that'll apply to the Doctors themselves, and it'll apply to the storylines, and it'll apply to the world design and everything about it. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching like always. Hopefully there was some element of structure to any of this conversation. I'm going to go ahead and take a break. See you guys next time.